live. Welcome to my completely spoiler-free, well, possibly spoiling the first two, review of the third Commander Keen game, Keen Must Die. So, the game is, I forget the rate, I think it's rated E for everyone or something like that, so will this video be. And this might be one of my shorter videos because I don't like to do negative reviews so much anymore, and this is one of those that I don't have that much positive to say about. Yeah, I think we shall dive in. So, yeah, this rounds out the trilogy, the first trilogy. And yeah, I'll start with yeah. So, I'll just briefly note, I'm glad that this was, followed up by more Keen games at the time. I consider the four that came after this much, they're great improvements on this trilogy. I will acknowledge they definitely, overall this trilogy wasn't bad. There's a lot to love, especially in the first two, and they certainly learned from their mistakes. But yeah, so after having saved the Earth, Commander Keen follows the alien mothership in his Bean and Bacon mega rocket to the Vorticon home planet, Vorticon 6, where he must find his way through the dark caves of oblivion towards the Grand Intellect's castle. And yeah, I hope you're sitting down. This has one of the most dangerous, unpleasant areas that, Keen's adventures take him to in this and any of his games, honestly. The suburbs. Yeah. And it's actually even worse than our Earth suburbs because, yeah, lots of deadly inhabitants with lethal pets and toys. And, yeah, if there seemed to be many Vorticons in the second game, or it seemed as if they were set on killing Keen, yeah, this, yeah, the title, whilst rather a simple statement, pretty much nails it. And yeah, by the end of this game, you will learn who the Grand Intellect is. And let's see, I think... Yeah, so I'm not going to talk too much about the stuff that hasn't really changed from the first two. I will note that by this point, there are so many dangers that the, input lag and two-button shooting really gets irritating. On the plus side, this game features a decoding of the alien alphabet, which allows players to understand the many signs of this and the first two games. They were written in the Vorticon alphabet, and yeah, that is a very clever way. Yeah, if kids like the first two enough, got the alphabet, they might go back and replay the first two, and oh, that's what that meant. That is genuinely a cool. I'm quite fond of when video games do such. Now, yeah, while not much new is added, this, what you saw in the first two is put to good use. And I believe this is the one where they added the vertically moving platforms. In the second game, they only moved horizontally, which, of course, gives them more options, level design-wise. And they do a really good job there. Yeah, I guess I kind of already said, this is by far my least favorite of the entire series, probably the only of them that I genuinely dislike. But yeah, I mean, 6 out of 7, that's not a bad track record. And yeah, one of the main things is that the story, like, okay, I get these are children's games, but it's just such an underwhelming twist, and they've been building towards it for the first two games in addition to this one. Just, yeah. I get 100%. I get that it would appeal to at least some kids, and full disclosure, by the time I played this, I was not a child anymore. I was a teenager, and somewhat more jaded. With that said, I don't think I would have, like, I was still able to enjoy most of the kid-friendly stuff in these first three. When I was a kid, I was able to play Keen Dreams and the fourth game. These other five I only played later, and this twist was really one of the only things where I just genuinely didn't like it. Yeah. And let's see. Right, yeah, the stuff that was introduced in, Keen Dreams is very, I get, it's one of those things. You got to be careful about comparing a piece of media to something that came out later. But at the same time, I forget the exact years, but Keen Dreams did not come out that much later than this, and yeah, stuff like in-level saving, like, holy crap, that would have helped tremendously in this game. And, it's as with the first two, you can save right before and right after any level, but you cannot save during a level. So if you die near the end of a level, you will have to do the entire one over. And like I said, the controls and the number of threats here, yeah, and the difficulty, I feel they push too hard. And to be clear, I'm not one of those people who just don't, like, I love a challenge. Some of my favorite games are difficult, especially if you, like, yeah, one of my favorites from this time, from around when this came out, is the original Prince of Persia, which is also very difficult and also only allows saving at the start and ends of levels, but in part because of the controls being so much better, and just, there's not quite, like, this game gets genuinely hectic, like, almost frenetic, and that would be okay if there were just more, if in-level saving. Another thing, like, I also love Crash Bandicoot Warped, the third Crash Bandicoot level. That one's also fairly tough, also only allows saving, well, let's see, that one has checkpoint saving, but if you leave the level, if you stop playing, you can't continue from the mid level, from the partway through the level checkpoint save. That's only as long as you're in that level. Also, if you run out of extra lives, you'll have to start over, so that one also has a pretty decent challenge and a lot of sources of danger, but in that it's spread out somewhat more, other than, sometimes they'll get, there'll be a lot near the end of a level or some of the very last levels. But yeah, in this one, I just think, I hate to admit it, but I actually ended up skipping some of the, let's see, the choice-free level. Is that what those are called? The ones you don't have to play in order to complete the game, and yeah, I believe this was the only time in all 7 games where I found myself skipping levels because I was just like, no mas. I don't want to be playing something that's this frustrating, And yeah, I mean, I don't think I want to give too much away about the final level. Excuse me, but I definitely think it's too difficult. I get that they wanted a big finale. and I appreciate that they were definitely they were doing something that is at least potentially interesting. But yeah, I just think they pushed it too far, and I don't think they did in any of the others. I think they may have like gotten feedback and taken it to, you know, because like some of the other games sometimes can get very difficult. But one of the big things is after this one, they have difficulty settings. You know, there's 3 settings and you get to choose. You know, because like this one kind of feels like it's just set to the hardest difficulty, you know. And there's some fun to be had by playing on the hardest difficulty. I not to brag, but I have in fact beaten the 4th game on the highest difficulty. Even yeah, there are some parts of that where it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get past this. I kept trying. I eventually found a way. And part of that is the in-level saving, you know, and just the fact that I had already been able to complete it on easy meant that I was like, I can do this, you know? And in this one, yeah, it just kind of grinds you down in a way that it stops being fun. Yeah, I think... Right, I want to briefly note, you know, if you really badly want, because you know, yeah, by the end of this, you find out who the Grand Intellect is. I was not super impressed with that reveal. I don't think that, you know, unless you just really, I get, there are people who just love, like, super difficult games, you know, they'll play, like, emulated games and not make use of save states and rewind and such. If you're one of those people, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't have any personal beef with you or anything. But yeah, you might enjoy this, you know, but otherwise, like if you've bought the, you know, at this point you can't really get these separately, at least not legally. Well, let's see, the Keen Dreams you can get separately if you're getting the, I wanted to say it's called Special Edition, which I may or may not have already procured and be planning on doing. Perhaps even very soon, if everything works out. But the, what was the other thing? Yeah, if you've bought the collection, you know, on GOG or Steam or something, you may just want to skip this one. You'll find out pretty quickly if it's too difficult, you know, more difficult than you want to have to deal with. But yeah, you know, if you really badly want to know who the Grand Intellect is, let's see, I think it was the Wikipedia for the, yeah, that will tell you, you know, what the identity is, if you really badly want to know. And certainly, like, whilst playing the first 2, I was thinking, like, oh, who is this person? Yeah, I think that might more or less cover, let's see. Yeah, I think that might be everything that I had for this one. Yeah, I definitely do want to acknowledge, like I said, I think they push it too far. I do appreciate them, like, I don't know if it's gradual, but certainly, you know, hitting the throttle over the course of these 3. You know, there are some games out there where I find myself, you know, thinking, is this really, could they not have increased the difficulty somewhat over the course of these? Because if you spend enough time on something, you kind of want it to increase in difficulty, you know? Right, okay, so the following, I'm not saying that the following games are, like, I wasn't expecting this game to be on the level of the following games, but just as, you know, example, some other challenging games that I absolutely love. You know, 3 of my favorite games. I guess, yeah, right now, my top 3 of my absolute favorite games, in no particular order, because I genuinely cannot, I've tried, but I cannot say that one of these is better than the other. But yeah, my 3 Deus Ex 1, System Shock 2, and Prince of Persia, The Two Thrones. I always get mixed up because Rival Swords is the Wii version. That one is not quite as... There's a lot to love about that one, but there's also some sources of frustration and disappointment and such. But yeah, you know, those are my 3 favorite games. Those also get very challenging, especially near the end. And obviously I'm not expecting this to have the same level of complexity. I think that might more or less cover, yeah. I think that they did do a really solid job. I don't want to leave on like a... I'm trying to think of something positive to end this on. So obviously it's not so much going to be like current events, although it does look like Trump might have overplayed his hand, might have, you know, really screwed up with the... I guess I shouldn't say, since this is the video that might be watched by kids, but yeah, just he may have made a mistake that actually is going to really have consequences this time. So that's something, at least. He can be replaced by someone who's hopefully going to hurt significantly less people. Yeah, I think they did a really good job after this game, on the 4 games that came after this, on not pushing it as far. You know, again, I'm going to stop repeating myself. Just you know, they didn't stop coming up with really cool designs and creating levels that have sources of danger. You know, that would really have been... I would not have been as big a fan of, you know, like I've mentioned before. Yeah, I said it just in this video, which 2 games I grew up on, you know, so yeah, I would not have been as big a fan of them, and consequently, you know, action-adventure platformers in general, if those had not had the challenge and the creativity that they do. It was, you know, it was those 2, and then the original Prince of Persia. That's what really got me, you know. For a while, I was like, okay, you say this is a great game, where's the platforming element? You know, that was what a good game was to me, a challenging platformer. Just, yeah, yeah, I'm really glad that they, you know, they realized that they had pushed it a bit far here, but kept what really worked, such as the like the moving platforms is some of my favorite stuff in some of these games, you know, especially the ones that came after this, especially the 4th one, you know. But yeah, yeah, I hope I've done a decent job on not just making this like an endless rant, which is definitely what I felt like doing right after completing the game. I guess I haven't said yet. Yeah, this is from memory. I haven't played this recently. But yeah, I also really appreciate the fact that, yeah, you know, the first one, it's on Mars, the second is the mothership, and now, you know, you're going to the home planet. So it is like an escalation. You're getting closer to the source of the danger, which has been, you know, from the start, it was the Vorticons that were the danger, and each game has more of them, and they're more dangerous, and yeah, you get closer to, and in this one even meet the actual the source behind all this. And I do think it's very compelling when you can do that sort of thing. You know, I'm not saying every single series has to, but yeah, it's that is really cool. I'm glad that they were able to do that, at least with the first trilogy.